My name is Andrea Filippetti. I'm from Italy, Rome. I am based at the National Research Council of Italy. I have a long relationship with Birkbeck. I was finishing my PhD there, 2009. Then I spent a couple of years at London School of Economics with the Marie Curie program. I have a number of collaborations with colleagues there, Frederick Guy, Luca Andriani, Federica Rossi, and Marion Friends. So I have a lot of joint works and collaborations with guys from London and Birkbeck in particular, and so I'm happy to be here. It's a joint work with Neil Lee from LAC. The paper is about individual risks. So the idea is that if you think about a number of issues in the economy, you think about actions like investing or innovating or migrating, moving elsewhere, or getting trained, or choosing some particular education. They all involve some risk. Okay, so the idea is that in the economy, so many decisions involve some risk to some extent. So we know people tend to be risk averse. There's this notion of risk aversion in the economy, while to some extent we want people to be risk prone. So we want people to take on risks because investment, innovation, startups. It's all about being able to take some risks. So the idea was, we benefit from data set, a survey which was carried out in Italy, in which we have a couple of questions about how to what extent people are, risk averse or not. Those are the typical questions that you see also in, entertainment on TV. When you have two envelopes, you don't know what's inside. You can even get an envelope, or you can get some amount of money. So, the more you are risk averse, the more you will take money. While if you are more, risk prone, you will pick an envelope, and you might even want a larger fraction of money or nothing. So, there are some kind of questions of this type just to capture the risk propensity of people. And so we decided, okay, let's see if risk propensity depends on the environment, the economic environment, okay, during the crisis. I mean, we were looking at the recessions 2008, 2011, okay? So the idea is that let's see to what extent the environment affects individual risk attitude. And in particular, to what extent the local labor market conditions affect individual risk propensity. That's the main idea of the paper. The idea is because, I was working previously with Frederick Guy at Birkbeck on papers about risk. We have a paper published on research policy in which the idea there is that if you have some labor market institutions which protect you, this will encourage risk-taking in educational and training choice. Okay, so the idea is that if you have institutions which would protect you, for example, if you lose your job, so unemployment benefits, income benefits, some kind of support. So the more you are supported from the labor market, the more you are ready to take on risks in terms of educational choices and skills, training, so on and so forth. So that was the idea. And Neil Lee has been working a lot on psychological traits. And so we decided to combine together these two perspectives into one single piece of research. Well, the key finding is that when we do empirical analysis, The idea is that individual risk propensity depends on a number of factors. Okay, we have a lot of individual factors, and then we have also local labor market conditions, which is what we are trying to look at, to explore. So what we find is that individual risk propensity depends on a number of individual characteristics, as you would expect. The more you are educated, the higher the attitude of risk. If you are employed, you would risk more. If you are unemployed, you have less propensity to risk. Age also would affect risk propensity. So you have a number of individual characteristics which reasonably affect individual risk propensity. And the main result is that taking care of all these individual characteristics, family income, it's a great predictor of risk propensity, okay? So when you take into account all these elements, the local labor market condition still impact on risk propensity. And the way in which it impacts is that we were looking at labor market specifically at change in unemployment. So the idea is that you have the crisis, there's a shock on the labor market, you have a rise in unemployment rates, okay? What we find is that the higher the unemployment change, so the higher the unemployment rate change, the higher the negative impact on risk propensity. So if you live in a location in which you have a big shock in the labor market, so unemployment goes up quite a lot, then you have less risk propensity of people. And this doesn't depend on the level or on the initial level of unemployment. It's just a matter of the variation. So you have the crisis, big variation in unemployment, and then people are, for some reason, less encouraged to take on risks. So if you think about it, this is quite problematic, because in principle, when you are into local economic systems in which you have a big shock, you want people to react. So for example, you have a lot of people going out from the labor market, a lot of people, a lot of companies may close. You want people to, be able to start new companies, or, to migrate, or to invest in education. Okay, so you want some reaction in there. But what we find is that the higher the shock, the less people are ready to take on risks. Okay, which it's precisely the opposite of what you would like to have. Okay, that's the main finding of the paper, I guess. Useful is a strange category for researchers. The idea is that you want to encourage a debate on these kind of issues. I make a couple of examples of why it could be relevant to look into this direction. So, for example, we have a number of policies at the European level about encouraging entrepreneurship. So that's one of the typical reactions to crisis is that, okay, we need to encourage people to be entrepreneurs. Okay, if you want, the creative destruction idea is Schumpeter, who says, okay, people would react in a crisis, and then they would go out and establish their own company. So there's a lot of political support and political resources to policies encouraging entrepreneurship. But then, at the end of the day, it's the single person who would take this decision to start a new venture. And so we are back to our problem of people, they are less encouraged to take on risks in places where the crisis hit a lot. So it's this idea that when you design policies which involve some risk-taking assumption, well, you need to consider that there are a lot of psychological factors in it, and also that along with individual factors, also the environment affects risk propensity, and affects risk propensity in a negative way, okay, precisely in a depressing way, okay? So I think the usefulness of this kind of studies is that it's quite complex when you try to encourage people to take economic decisions in which risk is involved, and they need to take into account. Otherwise, policies can become not effective, or they can be effective in places in which they are less useful because they are already doing well. Okay, so if you want public intervention to be effective where it is really needed, there are a lot of other elements to be taken into account, including the fact that risk aversion depends on several individual and environmental, I would say, circumstances.